Hello and welcome everyone for this tutorial on the Python with Adobe Solutions. I would like to introduce you with the different possibility that you have to use Python to automate your different tasks for the Adobe solution that you have. And I wanted this tutorial to be really from the start, so you can, even if you don't know Python, start this tutorial and achieve something to your organization through Python and Adobe Solutions APIs. So I hope I will be clear. And if you have any comments or anything, then please let me know through either the comment section or through a direct email or anything else that you can find to reach me, Twitter account especially. And I hope I will be clear enough. But I don't have so much of scenario. I did prepare a bit, but I would like this to be very as much interactive as it could be. So I didn't prepare, and I would like to go through all of the steps that I would have done directly. So no shortcuts. You will see everything from start to finish, and then no hidden magic for you. So let's get started. So for starting with Adobe APIs and Python, you first need Python, and that is why I'm going to python.org. So when you're going to python.org, you need to download the different Python, and you can see they can find different versions. So I would encourage you to take the latest one. If you don't have any specific recommendation from your company to use a specific one, then I would always recommend to start with the latest one. There is still the 2.7 available, but you can see that maintenance status is end of life. So it's not supported anymore. And if you find any problem there, it will not be supported. Also, it's a bit different than the 3.x and E3. So the commands are not exactly the same and so on. So I would not recommend to use this one. Then start to download this 3.1 and you can download it here. I already have that installed. I will try as much as possible to do everything the same that what you need to do in the different tutorial, but I will not deinstall or uninstall the Python I have. So on this step I will just skip, but I trust you that if you don't have Python, then download Python. One of the steps that is usually being missed during the different introduction to Python is the different IDE that you need to use. And the IDE are for development environment, interactive one. And I'm personally using VS Code. So I would obviously, I can obviously recommend using VS Code. You can directly go to Visual Studio Code and download everything. Then you need to install directly the different thing that you need. So it's Python library. You can see that directly if I'm starting VS Code and showing it to you. You can directly see that here. Here you have the different, I guess, extension. That's what it's called. And if you type Python, you can see that I can different way to recognize that this is Python, and then you can use the different Python modules. So for me, I'm using, as you can see, Python 3.7, and this is it. So starting there, you can directly write Python inside VS Code. So this is what you need to do when you want to write Python code. You need to have some kind of development environment to do that. It doesn't have to be so fancy as the Visual Studio Code. You can use the text editor. Actually, some people do that. It's totally fine. One which is really, really good is Sublime Text. So you can actually go to Sublime Text and download this. It's very useful for anyone using Python or any other language. Actually, JavaScript usually I'm doing a lot of JavaScript file directly there as well. So it's look like this, and you can find the different language supported here, and I can use Python or you can use JavaScript format if you want. I mean, it's even more than this. You even have Rust or Ruby. So it's pretty cool to do that. You don't have the possibility to run your code directly there, so it's not from scratch. Then I think you can install a module to do that. Therefore, I'm not using that much with Python, but I'm using it more with JavaScript, where I most of the case need a browser anyway. I'm not doing any Node. So those are the two things I would recommend to use if you want to write Python code after installing Python. That being said, I cannot not mention Spider, which is a development environment for Python, and it got me started on Python at the very beginning because they have something which is really cool, and I can show you here on the image, is that they have these elements on the right, where all of the different variables that you are going to use and define are going to showcase here what their value of what their values are, and and you can directly interact with them there, which is very useful when you start with Python or programming languages in general. You don't understand sometimes what is being kept in those variables. So this is something that got me started. It's mostly for scientists. So I'm no more doing the engineering part and less doing some analysis. So I'm not following that one that much, but definitely it's a good one. So those are the different things that you need to get started from scratch anyway using Python. So Python and a development environment. When you install your Python installation, I would recommend you to make sure that in your computer you add the path in your system. So you go to your control panel, system and security, and then you can see the environment variables here. And then here you can see that there is a path here, or there is a path in the system. So this one is for me, and this one is for the system. And I do think in any case, I did it for the system. And you can see that here for Python 3.7, I actually included the script one, and I would recommend you to do that. So you make sure that Python is available for you anywhere on your machine. If you can do that, it's very useful. If you cannot because you're using your company computer, then I would recommend to reach to your company because Python is free. Python is quite well known in the IT world. So usually they could do that. If they are reluctant to do that, then it's not a big deal, but it makes your life easier. Then you can, when you have all of that ready, you can actually check if Python is on your machine by doing a command. So I have a command here directly. So if I click on this, I can see this, but you may not have it yet. So what I do is you go here and you can do command, CMD, and then it's a command prompt. You have that. So here you can see if I'm typing Python. You can see now I'm using Python 3.7, and I can do some stuff such as a very famous print statement. And if I'm putting hello, it's a hello, and so on. So this is really good. It's starting, it works. And from there, I'm very good. What you can do with Python, and it's very cool, is to install modules. So Python works with modules that are very useful. So you don't need to reinvent the wheel each time. So some very clever and smart people are doing modules for you to use, and there are several ones that are very famous, and you probably need to install at some point. So one of them is Panda. I already have that installed, which is really cool. We'll see how to install module in the very beginning, but actually I think for any module that you want to install, so you can see there is a getting started install Panda, and the very famous pip command is always being managed here. There is also the possibility to use Anaconda, which is a huge library containing a lot of different elements that you can install, and Panda is in it. And for Anaconda, you can actually type Anaconda Python, and yeah, and here you can directly, it's free also, and you can get started there and get the different install Anaconda individual edition, because you are not a company, so you actually normally use that on your own. Not for production environments, at least. If you do, please give some money to that, because it's an organization, and it's a really, really good one that help promote a lot of things that are helping a lot of companies. So starting with that, it is going to now working on Python itself. So I would like to introduce now that there are some possibility to write Python code directly in your browser, and that's what I'm usually doing when I'm showcasing to other people what I can do with Python, because then you can download and use the script from other people. And this is called by, you can see here, it's called Notebook. It's in Jupyter, it's the same organization that doing Pandas, not the exact same organization, but part of the organization. And this is really, really nice. It's very famous now. It's getting more and more famous. Like, I guess more and more programming language are going to use that or have sort of this kind of setup, because it's really helpful to share what you can do or what you want to do with others. But for using that, and before starting using Python, I want to start installing some stuff. So as I was saying before, you can use the pip command, which is pip, and you can say, I want to install something, and you need to know what you want to install. But I would guess that for you, what you want to install is Panda first, which is really cool. And then it will say, okay, it's already satisfied, I already have Panda, it doesn't matter. And the other thing that you want to do is either install Anaconda or either install Jupyter. You can install Jupyter like this, and I normally, with Pandas. So pip install Jupyter, and now you say, okay, check, everything is already satisfied, so don't worry, you already have this. So as soon as you have done that, then you can actually start using Python in a more efficient way. That the way I will do for this series of tutorials. Then I will try to upload the different Jupyter that I'm creating to either my GitHub or to any other places where you can grab it and do it. I would encourage you to do what I'm doing on your own without this. So I think it's the best way to learn. But of course, yeah, you can use mine as well. That's totally fine for me. So I will start to create a folder actually for this, which is gonna be tutorial 0. Because this is the very first tutorial that I'm going to do now in order to help you with the API and Python. And the next one will probably be on analytics, and the one after maybe again on analytics, but on specific other things on analytics or more use cases, and then direct tutorials for analytics API. And after that, I'm going to do launch API, and again another one for use cases for launch API after that. So my tutorial 0 is very the beginning of this, and in order to use, we're not going to showcase that every time, but in order to use it, you use a right click and when holding your shift bar, and you can actually see that I have open PowerShell window here, that I'm going to do that. And the PowerShell is like a command, but now it's blue. So it's a blue command. And there, as I have installed Jupyter and I have Python available from all of my places, I can actually do Jupyter notebook. What other people are doing most often, like a new things that is coming. I think Jupyter notebook is the latest one, but I'm still using it. You can do Jupyter Lab. It doesn't matter, and it will look exactly the same. As long as it's working, maybe at some point, if you watch this video later, you will actually need to do Jupyter Lab. So be mindful of that. You will have normally Python 3 already available as an environment to start. So I'm going to use that. There is other environment variable that you can use, but normally for you, you will have only Python 3. So I'm going to start that, and here is what is called a notebook. It may not exactly look the same for you because I have some extra things on my notebook that enable me to, it's called a extension, so you can actually add that to add more stuff. So it makes my content here with Markdown available. But it's not required to do that. If you do very long notebook, then it makes more sense to have this. So here you can actually change the name, and I'm going to change that to tutorial on Python. And I want to say that I'm not a very expert guy on Python. I do know some stuff in and out. I have some knowledge at some point of Python because I built some modules that we are going to use during the different tutorials. But if you want to have really good advice and from very good experts, then I would recommend you to go to either, I think there is Real Python, which is really nice, and they have a lot of things to learn Python. What I did from programming Python programming.net. I think it is, and here you do have, if I'm going to the home page, of course, I'm going to the home page now, you can see Python fundamentals, and there are the basic, intermediate, and sockets, which is a bit more advanced. But normally already in the introduction, you will have everything that you need to know, and it's very well done. It's one of the best guy that I know doing Python and showcasing Python for capabilities. And then just follow the tutorial or the real Python one, or any Coursera, anything that you want to do if you want to have real advice to start Python. I will cover some of the topic, but obviously not all of the topic. You can imagine there is probably some hours to spend in order to cover everything. But I will give you the basic that you need to know for starting with the Adobe API. So let's get started. If you don't know any programming language, then you need to know that on every programming language you will define variables that are going to hold values, and those values can be different types. There are types that are more complex than others, and it's types that you are more familiar already. I will showcase that. So the first type that I would like to show is the string, which is basically a string is something like a text that you can write in here. And this is the string. This is my variable, and now I'm assigning this string to my variables. And maybe I want to do variable string in order for you to really get what's a variable and what is a string. So I'm starting with this, and by entering enter, I'm actually assigning everything, and I need to hold shift actually to then actually run that and also create a new one, a new cell below. And now if I do variable string and I drag, it will tell me, oh, here is my text. So this is my variable. Technically, you cannot really do that in your program. So this is because Jupyter is interpreting and giving you the answer. Normally, it will not show you anything. The real way to showcase this is to do a print statement. And this is something that is very easy to remember because this is going to print you the variable value. So again, shift enter now. You can obviously use the different run. Here it's running again. And you can see that every time I'm running, it's incrementing a number. So every time you can see that those numbers increase, and you can follow up what the order is. So this is what makes Jupyter Notebook really cool. You can obviously add more cells, and I think you can, if I'm insert cell above or insert cell below, you can do that directly with the command line. If you escape from a cell, then you can see that this is selection is in blue, and I'm typing B, and I'm adding on below, and I'm typing A, and this is on top. What is really cool with the notebook is also that you can type here. I typed M, which is for Markdown, and now I can use the Markdown language to split my different elements in my notebook. So here we'll say as a title, this is the title, this is the title number 2, and this is title number 3, and this is the title, and this will be introduction variable. And you can see number 1 is introduction variable. So you can see this is my start, and now I want to know. Sometimes you want to know what type is it, because no one is speaking for some time and you don't remember what variable string is. And you can do a type, and it gives you it's a string. Okay. And this the second type I want to show you quickly. I will type integer, and this is a round number. So it's no decimals, nothing. It's just 1 is one number. So if I'm going to type integer, this is int for integer. And yes, sometimes you have abstract values. So if I'm doing a variable float and this, then this is the float type. Float. Because it tells me what it is. There are some those different variables type that you see here are the one that you will find. I mean, you will find obviously more, but you will find everywhere on any programming language. One of them is also a very famous one that you may have heard already, is the Boolean, and Boolean is true or is false. You can see that here in that case, my Boolean is going to be true. And the difference with JavaScript, if you ever used JavaScript before, is that the true in JavaScript is with the little t, and this with the capital T. So if I'm going to type again, it tells me that it's a boolean. But you can actually, I want to make sure that you understand that the variable doesn't have to contain the name or the type that you have. So you can actually do my variables, var, and I need to rerun that cell. And my var is a boolean. Those are very famous, and as I say, you will find them everywhere on any programming language. The one that you need to know and are specific to Python are the list and the dictionary. And those are very important to know because you usually store your element in those tools. There are other types that we will not cover, that are tuples or arrays, that are kind of a list, but they are not exactly the same. We may see that later. If I have any question, I can answer that. But I don't think it's important because I'm rarely using them. But they exist. You need to know it. They're exactly the same type as the list. So to do a list, you can create variables. So my var, and you can actually overwrite my var now with a list. So this is going to be a list. I'm going to say my var is a list. If I do type my var, now tells me it's a list. And from a list, you can append stuff. So you can append 1. And now my var contains 1. If I know append 2, my var contains 1 and 2. You can also append, obviously, string. And you can see here that this is string. So it can be any type. And it can contain as many as you have memories for. And it can contain a very long amount of elements. You can select the different elements that you have by their index. So this is the index 0 because arrays are the position of the different elements start at 0. So 0, 1, 2. So if I'm doing my var 0, it's 1. And if I'm doing 3, then it's saying, okay, it is out of range. You cannot access 3 because there are no 4 elements, because 3 is the position number 4, actually. So now if I'm 2 is actually 3. The other way you can create a list that you may see in my tutorial is to do that. This is how you do a list, like expression, and now my var is empty. So I can actually look at my var, and it's an empty list. I'm going to type my var, it's still a list. You can obviously start my var with some values already, and my var with 1, 2, 3 on top, and it's still a list. You can, sometimes you don't want to keep some cells in the book, so what you can do is to type D when you are unselected this cell but still on it, and I do double D and this cell disappears. Okay. So these are the very basic that we are going to use in the different Python tutorials. Obviously, there are a lot more to know about variables than what I explained, but I think this gives you already an overview of what Python and variables are. The next things I want to show you is the different logic that we can have. Oh, and actually, I'm saying that, I'm sorry, but I forgot to give you the dictionary. And the dictionary, so before I'm going to show you the logic of Python. The dictionary is a type of dimension that are variables that is key value pairs. So if I'm doing my dict my dictionary, let's do my dictionary. And then this is the way that you can actually call it from an expression. We can do it like this. This is dictionary. I can put it trust me now. And the way you assign value to it is to give a key, as I said. You give a key, and you give then a value. And then if I'm calling the dictionary, it's a key value thing. at the very beginning of the element that you need to have for the different tutorial that you need to understand for the tutorial that I'm going to showcase. The logic that you can have in Python are the same than any programming language. They are not exactly working the same way, but the inner logic of it is exactly it. So the first logic you can have is the if statement. So you can have if ball layer equals true, then you do a semicolon. Then automatically in Python, the indentation is very important. So you need to have the indentation. So either the tab or 4 spaces to start and say if boolean is true, then print something. And if I'm doing that, it prints something because we have assigned boolean before. This is not there anymore, but it still exists. And this is something that you need to check, because if I'm doing my boolean equals true, and it's like, okay, my boolean is not defined. So you need to check when you start to use logic, you need to be careful of that logic and make sure that you are trying to call something that exists. Find that most of the time, the errors that are showcasing here in Python are helpful, but it could be sometimes barbaric, and you need to be careful for that. But the same way I can do false, print something, and in that case you can see that it doesn't print anything. But you can do also different logic, like if boolean is different than false, then print something. This if statement is important to know, because it's actually what gets you started to the logic of how a program works. This if logic always comes with else. So here it's print something else. So if the boolean is false, in that case, I'm going to print something else. I'm going to print something else. In that case, I'm going to print something else, because boolean is false. It's not false. It's something else. It could be false. It could be anything else. If I say boolean equals false now, so I am assigning to false. Now I'm going to do that. No, it's only something, because boolean has been assigned to false. If I'm going to do something here, so now it's a string. So is boolean false or boolean true? If I'm going to do something, it's something else, because basically it's not a boolean anymore. It's not false or true. Okay. So now the if logic can have other elements. So you can have elif boolean equals something, then print it is something. And you can see that now that my boolean is something, I can print something. So it gets all of the different cases. The other big logic that you need to have, or you need to understand, is the for loop. The for loop is the loop that when you have a series of values, you loop over them. And in that case, you just need to start with anything that contains multiple values. And for the sake of that example, I'm going to use my list, which is going to loop over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up. And now I'm going to put my value in my list, print my value. You can see that now it's starting with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And these different elements are stored in my value. So automatically, Python understand that when you're using for, you try to iterate over specific elements. And this element there, each value of this element are taking are being hosted into my value, and my value for the first loop is rendering the first value. Then the second loop is containing the second value, and so on and so on until there is no value anymore. So this is quite harder to understand because people may think, actually I was confused because how do you know what my value contains? Actually, you need to know what is inside your list to know what different value, because it will contain at some point any value that you have in your list. But what you want to do, you want to say, okay, if my value at some point is equal to 4, then print value. And you can do that, and the loop will still run, and my value will still contain the different values, but it will only print the value when it's equal to 4. So you maybe get confused to it, and if you are going to do more, you can do that. And you can see now it's 4, and you're thinking, oh, actually it's not going through the whole loop, but it is. It's so fast because we have the small loop. But what I wanted to showcase with this is that if it's not 4, else print this is not 4. And you can see that for 1 it's not 4, for 2 it's not 4, for 3 it's not 4, and for 5 it's not 4. So this is, I think, quite hard for a very beginner when you don't understand where the value is being stored, but it's stored, my value get erased and on every iteration of this. Okay, I hope that was clear. That was a different element that you need to know from Python and how to start with Python for the different tutorial I'm going to show. The different things that are still Python, the other thing that is still Python, but is less pure logic from Python, is to import the different elements and libraries or modules that you have installed. And in that case, I want to show you with Panda. So I told you already with Panda, I'm doing, and you can directly import pandas by calling import panda. But you will see me, and all I do with pandas, and I can do panda dot tab, and it should give me some elements now. Yep, here it is. Some elements, and this is the different element that I can do with pandas, or different methods I can call. In order to know all of them, I don't know all of them. What you will see me most often do is import pandas as PD. This is the naming convention that I'm usually doing, and most people are usually doing for working with pandas. So this was a very brief things to know about Python, and now we'll see what you need to know or what you need to have in order to start the tutorial. And the other side is with Adobe Solutions. And from Adobe Solution, of course, you need to have access to Adobe Solution. I cannot provide you access to that, unfortunately, so you need to have access to those Adobe Solution. And you can go to expansecloud.adobe.com, and make sure you have access to all of the solution. So this part may be a bit long because I will need to log in and connect and so on. And once you have access, you need to make sure you do have access to your developers to have developer access to those solutions. So I'm going to take analytics and launch. So to make sure of that, you go to admin console if you can, or if you cannot, you ask the person that is responsible for the different project profile or different assignment to create for you first a project profile for your API, and second, get you to the different different developers. So you can see that I'm going to a product, and actually I can go to let's go to the launch API, Adobe, and there are different product profiles, and you can create yeah, let's go like this. I hope it works. I think it's not the launch API you need to have access to. Let me check. It's mostly Adobe Experience Platform Launch. Exactly. And you can see that I created a developer access. What you can do is to create a new profile and say, okay, my dev. So you will need to ask that from your from the person taking care of your different profile if you don't have access. And you create a new project profile, which is going to be my developers. Down. And there you can see that I can include different permissions. So I can include the different properties and the property rights. So at least you need to have the develop, but also company right, manage properties, and probably develop extension as well. You can also check that the user has different access, so you can also add them here in the developer access. Here you can see that I do have access to, as a developer, to my organization, so that also is required. So I would say create one profile for your API here, product profile, and make sure that you have a developer access here in the user for you as yourself. And then once you have that, you can go to console.adobe.io. And this is now normally new. So I didn't do that before yet. I mean, I did that, but before the new layout that has been displayed now. And what you need to do there is to create the different elements, that the different connection that you need to have for the Adobe Analytics and Launch API. So you select your company, and then you do what are you doing when you are in console Adobe IO is to create a new project. You can edit the project, and you can say, okay, this is going to be my API access. Or you can do some description, and then you can add an API. And here you can select the different API you want to have. In our case, we are in the Experience Cloud. So you can see that here there is Adobe Analytics. And I think a launch has been moved to Experience Platform. So in our case, I want to have Analytics and I want to have also Platform. I think you cannot do that both at the same time. So we'll do Analytics first. And in that area, you want to do a service account. So this will give you JSON web token. I think this is what is being used, and it will enables you to connect to the API without having access to a browser. So we'll do that next, and very soon I need to showcase. Oh, there is two options now. You can to your service. This private key pair is not stored. You can actually use this option 1 most probably. What I used to do is to do the upload your public keys here, and you can directly drag and drop your public key, but apparently they offer now the possibility to generate a key pair on their own. So let's try to do that now. Not knowing what exactly is going on, but hopefully it works the way I think it does and generate for you the key pairs automatically, and you will just have to download the public one. And here, yeah, here perfect. They give you the different configuration, and then you can even upload another public key if you want to remove this one. So which is quite nice. And you have all of your credentials. That's good. Next. Then you can type next, and this is where you needed to have a project profile specifically for your API. So in my case, I do have IO integration this for this. You can have, you can give the admin access to your API. That's also possible. Some of the people do, depend on your policy of your company. But for me, I will keep those two, so I can do anything I want normally if I configure those project profile correctly. And now okay, now you have everything here. You can copy paste every information you need to have for a connection to the API. So we'll come back to that in the next video, but you need to exactly do the same for launch now. So you will need to add a new API. So the API here is Adobe Analytics, and you can probably add a new one whenever this is finished loaded. API. Oh yeah, add to project on top, and here you can add a new API. And here that time you will need to go to Experience Platform. I have only access to Experience Platform Launch API, and probably do the same things. So yeah, I'm going to use the same key. So I'm fine with that. And I'm going to use the developer access, but yeah, I can do whatever I want actually. So this is my all access, so I will not be restricted to anything. But of course, check with your different department for that. So the config file that you have received, make sure that you have that available. Sometimes it probably contains your keys, but we will see later how to use that. And but once you are done with this, it is then done. You are set. I will give you some weeks for you to get up to speed. If you are really starting with Python, it's not what I show you that will really give you everything. It will give you everything you need to know to start using the API, because I will obviously discuss a lot more during the API generation and explain everything that is going on. But now you have already the very basics for it. If you want to feel more comfortable and understand exactly what's going on and why I'm doing this way, because sometimes obviously I will do shortcuts to explain. This is not supposed to be a Python course, it's more using the Adobe API and what you can do with that. Then I will let you have those 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, depending on when I'm going to upload those videos. I'll let you have those 2 or 3 weeks to prepare, to learn a bit about pandas, about what an API is. Of course, I will give you also some definition on that, and to use some script and get familiar with VS Code or Spider or Jupyter. If you do have some question and think that you would really like to have during those different tutorials that I'm going to showcase, please comment or send me a message. Twitter, it's I think my Twitter is pitchcrack. Is it? Let me check. Yeah, so it's pitchcrack. So let me know if you want to know anything here. And if you have any question on this tutorial, especially, or anything that is coming, please let me know through that, and I will try to answer or consider this, at least these different comments into my next videos. Have a great rest of the day, and I hope to talk to you soon. Bye.